Have you ever just wished someone would give you a simple, step-by-step manual for, living a more spiritually aware life? Well, it turns out that almost 1,000 years ago, the incredible scholar Imam Al-Ghazali did exactly that. He wrote this book, The Beginning of Guidance, and it's this timeless, super practical guide for anyone who's trying to close that gap between knowing what the right thing is and actually doing it. So let's dive into his amazing advice. Right out of the gate, Al-Ghazali does not pull any punches. He starts with the biggest question of all, the one that everything else is built on. Why are you really doing this? What's your true intention for seeking knowledge? Because as he makes crystal clear right here, the answer to that one question is going to determine whether this whole journey leads you to salvation or to total ruin. So to really get a handle on his advice, we're going to follow his 4-part roadmap. First, we're going to dig into what a seeker's true aim should be. Then we'll look at his blueprint for a life of obedience. After that, we'll talk about how to guard our outer selves from sin, and then we'll get to the most important part, how to purify our inner self, the heart. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. For Al-Ghazali, before you even think about your actions, your to-do lists, any of that, you have got to get your motivation straight. Your why is literally everything. Al-Ghazali says that people who seek knowledge basically fall into one of 3 buckets, and it's really worth asking ourselves which one we kind of sound like. First, you've got the winner. Their only goal is God in the next life. Simple. Then there's the one in jeopardy. Now this person, they use their knowledge for worldly stuff, for status. But, and this is crucial, they know it's wrong. They feel that guilt, so there's still hope. But that third one, the irretrievably lost, that's the most dangerous spot to be in. They're seeking wealth and status, but they've totally convinced themselves that they're doing good. They're completely blind to their own real intentions. So what's the whole point of this journey then? What are we aiming for? Well, it all comes down to achieving Taqwā, which we can translate as God consciousness. Al-Ghazali explains it has 2 sides of the same coin. You have the outward form, which is, following the rules, doing what you're supposed to do. And then you have the inward reality, which is all about the actual state of your heart. The rest of this book is basically a manual for getting both of those right. Okay, so how do you actually build that outward form of Taqwā? This is where the book gets so unbelievably practical. I mean, Al-Ghazali lays out a detailed schedule for your entire day, basically turning every single moment into a chance to be obedient and to remember God. And look, this is not just a few vague suggestions, it's a meticulously structured routine. We're talking about the specific prayers you say the second you wake up before dawn, the etiquette for how you use the bathroom, how to structure your time between prayers, and even how to go to sleep, seeing it as a kind of rehearsal for death. For him, there's no such thing as a spiritually neutral moment. Every single part of the day is a chance to build that consciousness. And this slide is the perfect example of his method. For every action, he gives you a specific prayer to go with it. So take ablution, right? The simple act of washing before prayer. Al-Ghazali just transforms it. As you wash your face, you're supposed to pray, "O Lord, make my face radiant with your light." As you wash your right arm, you say, "O Lord, give me my book of deeds in my right hand." See, every physical action is paired with a specific inner intention, which turns a simple ritual into this profound, full-body prayer. He's also really clear about how to prioritize your day. He says that after the morning prayer, your time should be spent on one of 4 things. The absolute best way to spend your time? Seeking useful knowledge, the kind that makes you more in awe of God. Second best is worship. Third is doing good for other people. And fourth is earning a living, which is also a necessity, and when you do it with the right intention, a form of worship itself. Okay, so that's the game plan for what you should be doing. But Al-Ghazali spends the whole second part of the book on what you have to avoid. This part is all about guarding our outer self, reining in the sins that we commit with our own bodies. Al-Ghazali uses this really powerful metaphor here. He says, you are the shepherd, and your body parts, your limbs, are your flock, and you are responsible for them. Your eyes, you have to guard them from looking at what's forbidden. Your ears, from hearing gossip. Your stomach, from consuming things you shouldn't. Your hands, from hitting or stealing. Your feet, from walking towards sin. All of them are a trust. And he warns that on the day of judgment, they are literally going to speak up and testify for or against you. Now, among all these body parts, he singles one out as being the most powerful, and by far the most dangerous, the tongue. He says that controlling your tongue is one of the hardest spiritual battles there is. He actually details 8 major calamities, or destructive sins that come from speech alone. Things like lying, arguing, flattery, but there's one he considers the absolute worst. And the worst of them all is backbiting, or Riyā. The definition is pretty simple, just saying something about someone that they wouldn't want to hear. But look at the weight he gives it. He cites a narration that says this one sin is more severe than 30 acts of adultery. I mean, that's a staggering comparison. It's meant to just shock us into realizing how serious this is. And to really hammer the point home, he uses this unforgettable graphic image from the Quran. God asks, "Would you like to eat the flesh of your dead brother?" Of course not. The idea is just repulsive. And that, Al-Ghazali explains, is the spiritual reality of backbiting. It's an act of literally consuming another person's honor. So, all of this brings us to the final and really the most essential part of the whole journey. After you've mastered your schedule and your physical actions, you have to turn inward. Because the ultimate battleground, the source of all good and all evil, is the heart. Al-Ghazali zeroes in on 3 root sicknesses of the heart. The first one is envy, or Hasad. And this isn't just wanting what someone else has. It's being actively pained by their good fortune and wishing it would be taken away from them. He calls it a self-inflicted punishment, a fire inside you that literally devours your good deeds, just like fire eats up wood. The second sickness is ostentation, or Riyā. This is when you do acts of worship not for God, but to be seen and praised by other people. He calls it a hidden idolatry because you're secretly making partners with God. You're serving him, sure, but you're also serving people's opinions of you. And that just makes the whole act spiritually worthless. In our age of social media, this warning feels more relevant than ever, doesn't it? And the third is conceit and arrogance. This is that disease of looking at yourself with admiration and looking down on everyone else with contempt. He reminds us that this is the original sin of Satan himself. And Al-Ghazali gives us a really simple diagnostic tool here. When a person is sick with this, listen to their language. It's filled with I and this, just this constant self-reference that shows a deep-seated feeling of being better than everyone else. And so here we are, full circle. You cannot fix the outside without fixing the inside. This is Al-Ghazali's final, most critical point. All those sins of the body we talked about, the eyes, the tongue, the hands, they're all just symptoms. The root cause, the origin of every single thing we do, is the state of our heart. You see, Al-Ghazali's book isn't just something to be read. It's a manual to be lived. It's meant to be a mirror you hold up to your own soul. And so it leaves us with a challenge, a really personal one. Beyond all the schedules and the checklists, if you were going to be brutally honest with yourself, what is the very first step you need to take to begin the real work of purifying your heart?